Well, everyone, here we are. It's Tuesday. We're top trading in 2025. The technology is working. Greg Gunner, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New
We've
Year.
got
I
a
think
whole new outlook here on 2025. This is not 2024 anymore. This is a big time forward looking top trades call. We're going to break down the market. I think you called it wonky earlier.
it's
So we're going to talk about a wonky market. We want to talk about some speculative opportunities because they are there. And this is a conversation. I don't know when the last time I had this was, but we're in one of those frustrating markets where you might be sitting in a batch of stocks that aren't going up, in a buy and hold or whatever. But if you look over the fence, there's all these little sectors that are popping off, and the indexes aren't feeling it. Whereas the last 2 or 3 years almost, I feel like the indexes they just kept marching higher. Now they're kind of taking a breather. Some of these little sectors are bubbling up. So Gunner's going to break us down into some of that stuff, looking at some charts, and then diving into some of those speculative sectors. And then what we want to talk about, some of the big topics, 2025, got inflation. We've got, the jolts came out, a lot of stuff that's top of mind for investors that we don't know. Like, will it be important or will it not? We'll try and break that down. Gunner, give us a breakdown. What are you seeing in the market? What's important and where should we go from here?
okay. So what happened over the holidays? We'd spent all this time and energy and hot air talking about a melt up, and I think what happened, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of it, is that we pushed all those gains forward. There was a bit of euphoria after the election, and I think the market got a little ahead of itself in November. Um, and then things started to break down slowly and frankly scare some people. I think some traders got a little spooked over the holiday season because breadth was poor. um it's still not awesome right now, uh but we have seen some incremental improvements in breadth. But I think it just came down to the fact that, November was a great month, and things got a little out of hand. We probably got a little bit ahead of ourselves, and then some of the speculative trading areas of the market, some of the bigger stuff that's not quantum or robotics or some of the little stuff that's really run, they ran out of steam, and we got a little bit of a reset heading into the new year. And then January comes around and things start picking back up again. And today it's getting a little weird or wonky or whatever I was saying earlier again, because we had jolts come out and people are worried about inflation again. The economy looks quote unquote too strong. At least that's how the market feels about it right now. And yields are up, stocks are down. The Nasdaq gave back all of its gains from yesterday and started tumbling lower right after 10 a.m. And here we are. We have a little bit of a bounce, but kind of an oddball day brewing right now, where we have yesterday with the mega caps looking really good, with semiconductors starting to break out again out of that huge 6 month coil. That's something we've been watching for a long time. And then this morning, we have a bunch of abrupt reversals in those bigger stocks. Meta's down like almost 3%. Nvidia's down 5%. So Nvidia gapped up to new all-time highs and is now down 5%. That's a big swing intraday after just, an hour and a half or so of the market being open. Tesla's down 3%. Amazon's down, while there's a lot of other stuff around the S&P that's up. So kind of an opposite day here. Meanwhile, all the other stuff you were talking about, Matt, all those big speculative trades, like your quantums, some of the alt energy plays, a lot of this other stuff, that's all still kind of trucking along right here. I think it's getting a little long in the tooth, and some of those names are going to need to reset. But a lot of those hypey names in those groups, they look good, and they just are world beaters, and they just continue to run. So that's been very impressive. So um, I don't know if we want to call this a bifurcated market, but there are certain growth stocks that are working and certain ones that aren't. There are certain mega caps that are looking good. There's certain ones that aren't. So I really need to see how all this develops moving forward. Um, Going back to 2025 and the bigger picture, one thing that I've been harping on over the past, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks now, is the fact that we're going to eventually need to see some type of corrective action in this market that we haven't seen in a very long time. We have not seen a 10% pullback in the S&P since 2023. It is now 2025. That is unusual, and we're going to need to see the market let off some steam there. We're going to need to see the market scare some people, and that really hasn't happened. It almost got there back in August during that whole yen debacle, but it bounced right away. We didn't get a full 10% decline, and people weren't even thinking about it 6 weeks later. I think we need more of a grinding pullback, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened during the first half of this year. So we have kind of two competing thoughts in our trader minds right now. One is we have all this speculative stuff that's working, and it's working really well. And we should try to ride that as much as we can, which is why I put on that plug trade yesterday, because stuff like that is just popping off and ripping higher, and that's great. But at the same time, I think we need to get our minds right and realize that we're entering a weak part of the presidential cycle. This is also the weakest quarter, which is something I've been writing about. So Q1 of the first year of a presidential cycle is usually pretty weak. This would be the perfect time for the market to sneak to new highs and then start moving lower, surprise some people, and start undercutting some support levels, scaring some people out of some positions, and then chopping along for several weeks before it gets its feet. And find some buyers. And then we figure out who the new leadership's going to be from there. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. So while I am interested in taking as many of these speculative trades as I can, that I see that that are possible for us to take, in the back of my mind, I'm preparing for more difficult conditions. I don't want to say like bear market or anything like that. I don't think we're there at that point, but I do think things are going to get more difficult sometime between the end of this month and the end of the second quarter. I think things can get a little hairy for traders, and we're going to need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and that's another good thing. I mean, I know what you do here at Top Trades and then in general at the trading desk, the way that you've got your portfolio set up. It's a good reminder that right now we've had really good times since the election. I mean, frankly, we've had great times for 2 years almost, but now's not the time to start tripling, quadrupling down on different things, because you can hear what Gunner's saying. He's a little bit leery of this market. I am too. I get like a lot of different reads over the last 3 weeks of what's happening. I hate the concept of like tax loss selling. I don't think that's real. I think it's just
Yeah,
weird, and people use it as some sort of like
it's an
boogeyman or
excuse.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's an excuse. Whereas I do think profit taking is real when you can pinpoint the times that it's happening. And we've got to be near one of those times, because you've had some stocks run like crazy. And I think we're going to look at some of these sectors, but it's there has to be a time when you start taking some profits on these things, and that can have a material effect as opposed to like the tax loss boogeyman. Like, I don't think that's real.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, let's just look at something that's been hot lately. IONQ. This is a pretty well-known quantum stock
yep.
right here. Um, Absolutely defied gravity and broke above this nine. Let's call it the high nines area, 9, 10. Let's say the $10 was the clean break here, and it's all the way to 50 right now. That was back in what, mid-October, late October, when it really started to move. Yeah, this is overextended.
Yeah.
And you also have a bit of a momentum divergence here, where it has not been reaching the same overbought conditions as it has in the past right there. This can keep on going, obviously, but this is not the type of name where I'd be like, oh, I want to aggressively get long on something like this. I'm not saying it can't continue to go up. It could. But I would say that names like this need to reset in a
Yeah.
big way.
How does that
Um,
look like our Rigetti, RGTI or whatever? Like, that was the stock that we talked about last time it was on Top Trades. And again, that one just busted out of the gate, just
yeah, I
kept
mean,
going since then. The same chart,
exact
even
same
hotter
chart and
probably.
exact same momentum divergence there on RSI too, where you're not
Awesome.
getting as overbought in those areas. So I mean, again, it's not sell everything, run for the hills, but it's like looking at stuff like this, I would say, okay, I would exercise some caution
Yeah.
on plays like these right now. And I know these are tough to buy. They're tough for me to buy too. These aren't really like plays where you can put options trades on them. They're great to just buy a few shares and to let them run if you're into that sort of thing. Um, But but yeah, I mean, I think this is like, again, this is all about taking the temperature of the market and looking at trades like this. I feel like these are getting long in the tooth and they're going to need to reset. But I wonder what's going to happen to the speculative money, because I've had other conversations about this last week and this week where it really feels like a similar environment to late 2020, early 2021, where the market started splitting and you had the huge gamma squeezes in Tesla, and you had the GameStop stuff happening in late 2020 into 2021, and the market just flamed out from there. And while the averages were fine for most of 2021, that speculative bubble had burst by that point, and then that kind of set us up for stocks rolling over in the fall and then leading to the 2022 bear market right there, the kind of the post-COVID bubble bursting of that market right there, and inflation and everything else coming in. Obviously, we're not going to repeat that exactly. We never do in the markets, but it does feel like that because we have situations where there's a lot of stuff not doing so hot in the markets. Breadth isn't that great, and yet you have these areas like robotics, the quantums, the alt energy stuff that's just rolling, the space stocks, that have been trying to roll. Like, what is it, Rocket Lab? That's another one that's just been crazy. Um, I mean, they still look really good. And this one, I would say this one looks a lot better than some of the quantum ones because it actually has been consolidating for a while right here. I don't know if it can continue going, but the speculative money is out there. And we saw over the past, week or so where we had the big crypto reset as well, and then buyers came in and all the altcoins started moving again. Fartcoin is still doing really well, which is a very normal, sane investment to be making. So, you have all of these different things that are happening in the market right now. And at the same time, you have other stuff that's just marking time or that's getting hit. So, yeah, I feel like it's very similar to the holiday season just a few years ago. And we
Yeah.
have to, again, we have to be aware of that because what happened in February of 2021 is all that speculative stuff got hard resetted. And then it didn't really come back. It just chopped along all summer. And some of it tried to come back in Q3, but it never really made it. Again, different conditions, but at the same time, it took a long time for that stuff to reset. Again, I don't think we're going to see a situation where some of those quantum names, and maybe one or two will catch fire again, but I don't think we're going to see that huge groundswell of them like continue after like a 50% reset. I think they just need to chew people up for a while. That's just kind of how the market works. And then all that hot money has to go into something else, or it goes away entirely, which is a whole other problem. So we'll
Yeah.
see if that happens.
Yeah, one of the things, this is one of the comments that Miles wrote in the chat, and it's important, but he said, wait, I thought we were like all gung ho. There was a melt up coming. And just from a paradigm press standpoint, right? I think that's like Enrique's got a much more bullish outlook on the market right now, and rightfully so. Enrique's really smart. He's had a lot of good picks of recent, of any since I've met him. Great picks. The same thing with Gunnar, but we've got a little bit of a different mindset, and it's not crazy. It's not like Gunnar's not saying, "Hey, let's run out and start playing the downside of stocks and buying puts." It's just there's a little bit more apprehension here because this market could turn. It's a little bit questionable, and Gunnar, I like what you showed in those charts with, whether it's IonQ or Rigetti and even Rocket Lab, but like you can see that divergence. The
Yeah.
the RSI is starting to pull back a little bit. There's something to be said there that the market's losing a little bit of something. Now, could we keep melting up or not? We don't know. So just to make sure Miles and the folks like you don't think you're crazy, right? Like we've got a bunch of different opinions, and that's the beauty of the market. No one knows. If someone knows, you find that one person. What we do is we at Paradigm we've amassed a lot of people that are good at this, and you get to read them all and you get to make your own choice. But we're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff. If it's as easy as like, hey, the market's going to melt up, just go all in on everything. That would be one thing. I think we're in I lean a little bit to Gunner's mentality here too. Again, if you're talking personally with my account, I'm starting to go a little more cash heavy than normal. And I think even last year I was still like, I don't know, 50% bonds cash. And then it got a little bit more aggressive. Now I'm starting to pull back where I'm just waiting to see some stuff happening because you could run into, this is all narrative, Gunner, and we'll let you get right back to the charts. Like you could run into something. The inauguration's coming up. What if it's a sell the news? You got Nvidia earnings at the end of February. What if it's a sell the news? You just have these things that like it's possible you get profit taking. A lot of things have run.
Well, we can segue from here into selling the news with. I mean, we have CES this week, and we have Nvidia, and I mean, I don't want to read too much into this right now, but that's a pretty ugly candle on the
Yeah.
day right there, where you have it gapping higher to new all-time highs. I think these were all-time closing highs yesterday. Actually, I think it just eked over these closing highs from early November. But I mean,
Did you intentionally draw that line a little bit down?
yeah, I mean, I was just sort of messing around with like where because
I
this is
kind of like it. I like
non-exactly.
how it's not horizontal, it's just slightly down. It's like, I'll
You can mess
trust you,
with it all. You can
Nvidia.
mess with it all you want to. I was just trying to illustrate, like, and sometimes I like to chop the tops of those candles off where it doesn't close above those levels. But this is just areas to watch. And I was looking at like, okay, like where are we going to bounce here? Um, and is this thing going to roll over? I didn't think Nvidia was going to roll over right away. But I was watching it, and then you have a move like this where maybe it's getting a little tired here. I can't really say for sure. I need to see some follow through one way or the other. This could just be a 1 day thing. A bearish engulfing candle doesn't mean it has to move lower from here, but this has my eyes on it because we have a situation with semiconductors where, I mean, obviously they've been very strong market leaders, and when semis are up, things are usually going well. And it looked like semis were trying to break out. And keep in mind, these all-time highs, this is the VanEck ETF right here, SMH. These all-time highs right here were all the way back in early July. So we had July, August, September, October, November, December. We have 6 months of being removed from these and just sort of chopping along here. You can look at this. I think some people are looking at this as a big coil. I think that's fair, where you look at it like this. And we're trying to break out of this, but we need to extend. It was getting to the point where something needed to happen here toward the end of December. It's like, is this thing going to break higher or lower? So I was watching this like a hawk because I feel like this is one of those charts that can really like gauge how people are feeling about the market here. If we can't get Nvidia pushing to new highs every month, then what's everything else doing? I don't know. So I'm watching this one. Is this just going to be a quick retest of this 250 and then it's going to bounce? Are we going to have a false breakout here and then move lower? I think that would be very bad. People would be very upset about that. Um, so this is one of those areas where I'm like, okay, what's going to happen next? And again, we're just a few hours into this. This candle's not complete yet. This could just be, CES shenanigans where people got bulled up a little bit too much short term and they want to buy it back at 130, and that's fine. But we're gonna have to see how it goes. So I'm watching Nvidia. I'm watching ARC, my hype index here, because it's been flagging. A lot of these stocks were coming off of big bases right here, and some of them still look pretty good. But can it catch and keep moving higher here? Can it get back above this 63 level and really move, or are we just going to be in a mess? Is it going to retreat all the way back down to 50? I think if it does, then that tells us that a lot of that speculative money is drying up and people just aren't as excited to be trading some of these names. That's a little bit bearish, in the short term, I think. And again, I'm not saying it's bearish in the sense that like, oh my God, the market's going to crash. We have a big crisis on our hands. I'm saying that if this fails here and slides lower and we start to see corrections in the alt energy names, the robotic names, the quantum names, and then we start seeing bigger corrections in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, all the other stuff, then that tells me that the hot money is hibernating for a while and the market's more vulnerable. And we go through cycles like that. That's just how the market goes. You have these periods where people are willing to chase stocks higher and they get really excited about trading. And you have these periods where people get a little more conservative and they get scared of this action and they don't trust moves anymore. And they go and they hide in their cave and they wait for better market conditions. And it's possible we're entering one of those, or that we could be entering one of those in the next few weeks. We just have to wait and see.
Two tickers from the chat, Micron MU. I think it's just got some action today. And then the other one is Marvell,
Well,
MRVL.
I promised David that I would do NBTS. So I'm gonna do that first. Like I told him earlier in chat that
That's a respectable move.
yeah. So NVTS here, not a semiconductor I'm super familiar with, but I really like how this is setting up. I mean, obviously, this thing got absolutely creamed over the past couple years. Didn't really didn't really do so hot during the 2024 bull market rally. I mean, remember back to a year ago today, Nvidia was breaking out and ripping.
Yeah.
This one didn't, and it's finally starting to catch and move higher. Maybe it's got something going here. I mean, I would like it more if it got over $5. I feel like $5 is going to be like the make or break of like, is this done? I think it's done going down for now. It's just a matter of, is it really going to change trends to go higher, or is it just going to chop around sideways? So that's how I think of something like this. I don't hate it. I mean, I would take a long shot at something like this. It's $4. I don't know much about the business, but I like something like this that's gotten hammered right here, that had a big negative reaction to earnings and then has turned it around and is starting to get some attention. I think it might bounce around here because this area, it seems to like to dance around in between 360 and 480. That's a big wide range. It doesn't look so wide on here, but that's a big range for a stock like this. So if you can handle the swings of something like this, and you have a small enough position where you're not getting scared out of it when you have a day like this where it was down 15%, because the next day it was up, what, 12? So it's a little crazy, but I don't hate it. I think it could be a decent play. And then moving on to MU, you said?
Yep.
Oh, look, I already have a line on here. Now, do you want me to do this one crooked too? You want me to start doing this, or
I just like it. I think it's like when you lean to one of the pictures behind you. Like if you lean towards the bear, I'm like, oh no.
locked
Or
in?
if your line's slightly down a little bit, this is how I really get a gauge on the market.
Yeah. I mean, that's important stuff. That's important information, right? So with MU, this is one of those patterns which I would call like a failed breakdown. Like I think everybody was looking for this thing to break down here after this gap lower on earnings, and it just wouldn't. And now it's sprinting higher. I like stuff like that because I think folks are caught on the wrong side of it. I think there's probably some bears caught in MU, and it could probably go higher, but I don't think it's going to be a straight line. I think it might be a little bit messy. I think I would feel better about it once it gets higher, like over like 110, 112. I think I'd feel better about something like this because it has been kind of sloppy, for the most part. But I don't hate this either. I think this is good. And again, like if you're like more of a mean reversion type trader, or you're looking to buy like to be a buy the dips kind of person, I think buying this earnings dip would have obviously worked out. I know I'm Monday morning quarterbacking this thing, but at the same time, you can see the strong reaction here. Do we have like some CES hype from MU? I don't know. Partnership with Pure Storage. I don't know if that's from today or not. Key facts today, maybe. So yeah, it's got some positive news. It's up a lot over the past 4 sessions. So maybe give this one some time, but I don't hate it. And when you're wrong too. If it breaks below like 85, you're toast. So maybe like waiting to see how this develops. But I don't hate this either.
Yeah. And the other one was Marvell, MRVL. And again, I think that one had to do, we've got a bunch of things we published, but it had to do with Altucher.
Oh,
Their
okay.
group had, I think Altucher and Zach had Marvell on
Yeah.
as a sort of NVIDIA ancillary play, especially with the CES
Well,
presentation.
it looks really good.
Yeah.
It's a really good looking stock. I mean, I like how it's consolidating. Um, I think it's always good to pay attention to stocks that do something a little bit different than the rest of the market. And you can see here, like gapping higher off those earnings. This one really didn't take that big of a hit. I mean, remember, the 17th and the 18th, Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of the growth stuff got hit, and it did drop, but it did not give up this gap right here. So I think this one's pretty strong. We got a little bit of a momentum divergence here, but I really wouldn't sweat that one too much because I don't feel like it's that overextended right here. This is a really nice looking chart. Like I wouldn't be scared if I was owning that, if I own this. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. But it's James knows what he's doing. Zach knows what he's doing. So yeah, excellent looking play right here.
It's of no surprise. Yeah, I like it. I've been following. I don't own it, but it's got a storyline to it that I like. So
Yeah.
cool. All right, where do we want to go from here?
Um, well, I think we should talk about some more charts here. I mean, like, what's going on with Bitcoin? It's gotten a little funky here. I thought we were going to curl higher and rip, and then we have opposite days. And again, this is why I think the market's going to get a little difficult because we have a day like today where it's doing the exact opposite of what it did yesterday. We had what looked like a nice breakout, and then today everybody's scared out of this thing. I mean, like, are Bitcoin traders really looking at jolts at 10 a.m.? I don't know. So, something like this, again, just to like dig a little bit deeper into like what I'm thinking when I see a chart like this, I don't like it, but I'm not getting overly bearish over it. I can't let this one day dictate how I feel about it. We're just back to where we were on Monday morning.
Yeah.
It stinks. It's not fun to watch, especially if you're like trying to play some of these, any type of Bitcoin adjacent play right here. But at the same time, I don't think this is like, this isn't the nail in the coffin of Bitcoin. It could very, very well go lower from here. But I think we're hitting another bump here, and it's going to frustrate some people. Ethereum, the same kind of idea. At the start of the year, it looked like, Thursday, Friday of last week, it looked like this thing was going to rip too. And, maybe try to take back 4K. And I mean, look what happened today. We're down, 5% and some change. So I really want to see how these things develop. And again, it's all about taking the temperature of those speculative traders, because if they start ditching crypto, they start ditching quantum, they start ditching all this stuff, and then they don't pop up somewhere else, I think then we kind of know the market's cooling off, and we have to react accordingly. Someone was asking about PLTR, and I think that's another one to watch right here, because PLTR has really not been behaving with some of the other bigger stocks right here. I think it got massively overbought here. I mean, everybody was piling into this thing after the election. It just kept on going up. It didn't really correct in December at all. And now it's starting to roll over a little bit. This would be the fourth day out of 5 trading days where it finishes in the red. If it does, it's down almost 5% right here. Again, not the end of the world for this stock, but this is one of those names where I think it could take 6-8 months off and drop significantly and still be very much in a long-term bull market, and everything's fine with it. It's just that the people that bought up here get burned. So I would be looking at this as like a profit-taking area for this stock, if I was being more tactical, because I would say, all right, this theme isn't dead by any stretch of the imagination. But when you have, let's go from like, the breakout of these earnings right here in February to up here, you have a 300% gain in less than a year. That's gonna have to bleed off at some point. It could very well catch higher, move higher from here, but that's gonna have to bleed off at some point. And we can go back and we can kind of look at Nvidia to see how that goes. Nvidia did not fall apart, and I think this could be a very similar situation with PLTR, where you have the breakout, that gives you a 180% in just a matter of months, and then you essentially are sideways since then. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, that's how the markets move. They get ahead of themselves, and then they have to chill out, and maybe scare out some people, maybe wear out some people that just don't want to sit around, that are bored in the stock because it's not going anywhere. And then it can start going again, So that's how it goes. And I think something like PLTR, which has gotten a lot of eyeballs on it, back when Sean first was talking about, this being like his big buy in 2023. I think
it was October.
Yeah, it was back here. Obviously, no one was really paying too much attention to it, and that was a great time to buy it. Right now, everybody's paying attention to it. Great time to take some money off the table, and maybe keep some shares in your back pocket, and then revisit this thing in the summer and see where it's at, and see where you want to get back in. That's how
You're making me feel smart as America's favorite, probably not best, but favorite Palantir trader. Because that's what I've been doing. I've just been feeling the momentum sort of leaving it, and I've been probably at a third of my position now. Which again, I don't intend in leaving it, and I might buy back in at some point in time, but it just seems like it needs a breather, and it looks like what just the market action over the last month or two.
Well, and again, I don't want to draw like definitive parallels between now and 2021 and when things rolled over. But if you remember, PLTR was also a very popular, trader stock. It was a very popular hedge fund stock back in 2020, 2021, and I'll pull all the way back here on this chart. And again, I think we're in a different situation here, but like when this thing came on the market, everybody wanted it. And then you can see here, this is January, February of 2021. This was the speculative peak of the COVID market right here. These candles right here is when Tesla was going straight up, when GameStop was going straight up, and a bunch of those other stocks. Right here was it, and that was the top. The last week of January was the absolute top of the market right there, and then it started sputtering, and then it started giving a lot of that back. And if you look, it didn't go straight down, but man, did it get complicated, into 2022 right here. I mean, clearly off its highs, and then here's the bear market starting right here in January 2022. So it peaked all the way back here. There was a lot of stuff that did this. A lot of the pandemic traders peaked in January, February 21, whereas the semiconductors and some of the bigger stocks peaked in November 2021. So they kept running. This stuff didn't. And you see where it ended up. Below its IPO price. It had to spend a couple years in purgatory there before it really got going again. Looks great now, but again, this thing could reset all the way down to 40 bucks, which is a huge haircut for this. And they're really, I mean, like, it's depending upon how long it took it. I don't think it'd go straight down from there, but I don't think there'd be anything wrong with the longer term trend if it did that. So that's kind of, that's kind of how it goes.
Holly wanted to know what that was at the left side of the chart. She says, is it a duck or a dinosaur? I believe it's a dinosaur, like the beginning of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a dino.
It would be interesting if it was they should have a duck.
So they do that when they don't have the data. So that's all they got. They're saying can't go back any farther than that. But yeah,
we haven't done this in a while, but we use I know Gunnar does, I do. We use TradingView. They have a free platform. I think Gunnar, you have a paid version. I have a paid version, but it's cheap anyway. But anyone can use that. So it's one of the nice. We don't have any affiliation with it or anything like that. But it's a nice trading software. So if you want to see the dinosaur for yourself, have at it.
Yeah. And so like we got, and again, the market's stabilizing here. I don't think we're in like any type of real trouble yet, but my antenna is up, is kind of like the big thing I want to impart on everybody today, is that we're past this melt up period. And even back in November, even back before the election, and we were talking about the melt up, I wasn't at the point where I was saying 2025 is going to be, this rip-roaring year higher and everything's going to be perfect. Everything that we talked about was what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen in the next few weeks, how is trading going to be, and that's how I was setting things up. Now that we're getting into 2025, I think we need to think of the market, in two different boxes. Box one is the speculative stuff, the short-term stuff, the swing trading stuff, like with Plug. Just to go back to Plug right here, I don't think that this stock, and this is what we had we put the trade on Monday morning. I don't think that Plug is going to become the next whatever. Look at all these red E's. I mean, this Plug might be a zero at some point. I'm not looking at this as like this could be a huge longer term trade. Plug is running because a lot of the alt energy names like OKLO and all this other stuff, and some of the EV adjacent stuff is running. This is, hydrogen power stations. It's running because those are the type of stocks that are running. And what happens in those situations is you have traders that have made money on OKLO or, VST or SMR or some of these, and then they're looking for the next thing. And they're like, oh, okay, look, this one. And so they start putting money in this one, and it starts going up, and and this downtrend starts to break, and it starts moving higher. Because it's so cheap, these can be very explosive. And it can be one of those things where it runs from $2 to $10. And so this is the type of trade I want to get into, and then I want to sell it. I have no interest in sitting around, especially for earnings for a company like this. I don't think it's a good company. I think it's proven that. If you go back, we're not going to go back all the way to the dinosaur, but if you go back here, I mean, this thing has been going straight down for years. It's trying to come out of this. It's red today, but it is consolidating near the top of this range, which I think is very bullish. It take a
Hmm.
nice little break up here without giving too much of it back. It could run again tomorrow. When I first talked about this thing on Monday morning, I said, okay, um, let's uh, let's try to grab it here. I think aggressively we could see by late next week, we could see it break above 350. And it's getting pretty close to that after less than 24 hours. So that's really nice to see. Um, but I'm not thinking of this in that longer term bucket. In my longer term bucket, I'm thinking of things like, okay, what happens if like energy starts leading in Q1 and other things start falling apart? Like, what can we do to hedge? What can we do to survive a 10% pullback? What kind of stock should we be looking at to potentially maybe buy puts on for, that are a little bit longer dated? Um, and I've talked about this. I talked about this in the chat, like through the holidays and stuff like that, where let's try to get in the mindset of take our shots while we got them in the short term, in the near term on stuff like plug. If the market cooperates and then we can just bag some short term gains, that's fine. But let's take it a week at a time with overall market conditions and see where we're at and see if some of this stuff like what's happened here with Bitcoin, this reversal, see if those stick. If these reversals stick and we start moving lower right here and things get tough, we don't necessarily have to go down. We don't have to have that 10% pullback immediately. I'm not saying the market's going to crash 10% in a day. What I'm saying is we could get in an environment where things are very different than they were back in November. In November, breakouts are rolling, they're extending, things are getting overbought, and they're getting more overbought, and people are buying them, and that's great. We could be in a situation where instead we just do this. And what if Bitcoin needs more rest after this big move higher here from all the way down here at 63 to 104, and then it decides, oh, okay, I'm gonna scare people and drop down to 92 and then break lower and hit 85 and then go back to the 90s and then come back down. What if we get 2 months of that? What if we get 3 months of that? Um, what if the same thing happens in the NASDAQ where we get a bunch of range bound action? And we just have to be prepared for stuff like that. And I don't think that type of environment would be conducive to a lot of the runners that we saw back in November. We have to start thinking about other places we can go to make money in the market.
Yep. Yeah, it's just keeping your eye out and seeing what 2025 is going to have in store because there could be a switch, a little change here. We're seeing that rotation. I saw some in the chat, just talking about the different spots in rotation and stuff. Um, yeah, I have a trade on right now. This is don't not advisable for anybody, but I'm just playing that there's a reverse ETF on Nvidia and it's not leveraged. It's just NVDD, and that thing is just plowing itself into the ground. Don't bring it up. We're gonna have like a funeral.
No,
Everyone's
bringing
gonna
it
get real
up.
sad.
No,
You
it's
can't
not.
even
What are you
see
talking
it.
about?
It went into the volume bars, dude. Like it's gone. Like there should be a little tombstone. It's like dinosaur to tombstone. But it's not leveraged, and I still, man, I don't know what to do. I don't want to buy put. Nvidia puts are so expensive, and this is
Yeah,
all speculative. Even this dumb thing. I mean, this is obviously speculative, but it's
right.
just I do believe we're gonna get something. We're gonna have to pull back. I just don't think Nvidia. And again, for the believers out there, I apologize. I just don't believe Nvidia should be the world's most expensive stock. Like it just doesn't jive with me. So I think something's coming for them. You got I'd be just looking at earnings. Earnings is coming up. And you might have a little sell the news from yesterday. So who knows?
Well, and I'll look. I'll play. I'll be Davis, and I'll play devil's advocate for you on Nvidia. I'll be an Nvidia cheerleader right here. I think Nvidia could be. What if it is everything people want it to be? I think that's entirely possible, and it still goes down and chops along for 6, 8 months. It's entirely possible. That's just it. I mean, expectations were pulled so far forward in 2024. And in 2023, it was a great stock in 2023 too. So I mean, it's been going up, up, up. It's possible that it's everything everybody wants it to be, and it does deserve to be the biggest company in the world and the most important company in the world, and the stock still does nothing. People have to
Right.
realize that can happen, and that's what you have. That's what you have to wrap your mind around when you look at the performance of stocks like this. Is that the market always gets ahead of itself, especially on these big stories. It's behind, 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 which is exactly what happened with Nvidia. Back in 2022, nobody wanted it. And in early 2023, nobody wanted it because they were linking it with crypto and everything else. They're like, nobody's using these GPUs anymore. And then AI shows up. Okay, and the narrative changed, and it changed fast, and then people couldn't get enough of it. But I mean, again, like I'm not a big fan of this action right here. We're gonna have to see how it goes. It's just one day, but at the same time, like, you know, I think it's possible that at least in the short term, we get stuck with a sell the news type event for Nvidia this week. And it's not being bearish about it. It's not being bearish on the company. It's not being bearish on the stock. It's just short term. It might not outperform.
Yeah.
That's
All
just how
right.
it goes.
Slight switch of gears. Regale or entertain me for a second here. I've got three tickers. These are
Rigetti.
tickers. One, no, yeah, I don't have any exposure to these, I don't think right now. These are companies that NVIDIA owns. NVIDIA doesn't own that many companies. So they own Sound, Soun,
Oh yeah.
which you've been in and out of. So
Yeah.
that one looks like it's rolling over a little bit. Not
Yep.
great.
Yep.
They own RXRX, which is Recursion. That one,
I don't hate that. I don't hate that though. I mean, like it's trying to base out a little bit at least.
yeah, that
I
one
mean,
doesn't look too bad.
it's a sloppy mess for sure. It's not overbought.
And then the other one that I've been starting to get, it's just starting to warm up. I'm starting to see it more places is Nano X. It's NNOX.
Yeah, that
And
looks
that one's
like
starting to perk up. But that one's like that's on a big old downtrend. Otherwise, you start panning out, it's looking ugly.
it's a $500 million stock, so it's going to be wild. But
Yeah, a
it's
little
not.
baby
I
one.
mean, like I don't hate it right now. I mean, yeah, but it's you can see how messy these get, and that's I think that's due to the nature of just being lower trading volume on on these things. So, something like this, and you can see the intraday swings. I mean, this thing got up to $11 and then closed, at under 10. Um, so it's pretty wild during the day here. But again, I think this also sort of highlights how this market is behaving right now, where we have folks willing to jump into the NNOXs while they're selling Tesla, so we still have that speculative money sort of banging around in these little corners of the market. No, it's not. It's not one of my. No, NNOX is not a recommendation. I saw that in the chat. This is the first time I've ever looked at it. Um, but
Yeah, it's like a matte track. It's like a little dumpster matte pick
this is
that
a
I that I don't even
This is
own.
a Matt Inslee special right here. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. It's very interesting, and I use these things. I say this a lot. I'm always trying to take the market's temperature, and I think looking at stuff like this certainly helps. Um, but
I
it's
think they're writing in, and again, like now it's getting more institutional buy-in from me. I believe that came out of Microcap Millionaire, which is James Altucher and Chris Cimarelli. So
yep.
that probably has some decent research behind it and timing because those guys are good. Cimarelli is very, very good at finding little stocks with stories and charts that go up. He was the one that brought up. I mean, if we're going to bring up Fannie Mae, I'm in Fannie Mae as of few weeks ago.
That FNMA.
Yeah, that's the one. That's a Trump type pick. It's Trump could, and Ackman's been talking about it.
Right.
Trump could go in and privatize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and if they do, their valuation would be, 10x what it is right now. So
Mm-hmm.
again, don't jump into this thing with all feet. I think I just took a little bit off the table. Whenever it hit $5 yesterday, I took some off
Yeah,
the table.
I would
So
consider that
it's
like a non-technical special situations type trade for
yeah,
sure. I mean, the chart looks great, but yes, it's a special situation for sure because you'd have to have
straight up.
something happen in order for it to really work in your favor. Um, but yeah, like moving on to like some other like tickers that were looking great and aren't looking so hot. We have Tesla that's slowly been rolling over, which has been interesting because as Tesla was rolling over, some of the other EV stocks started perking up, which is interesting. I don't really know what that phenomenon is, but you had Tesla, which, you know, I was pounding the table about Tesla way back here at the end of June, saying, "What if this was a leader?" And it definitely was a great short term trade there into July, and then it had to reset before it finally went again. Um, but now it's been bleeding off since mid December. This was one of the stalwarts that really was propping the market up in early December when we were talking about breadth deteriorated in the market. You had the bigger stocks like Tesla marching higher every single day while a lot of other stuff was going down, down, down. Those first 2.5 weeks of December right there. But it peaked right there on the 17th, and we haven't seen much from it since then. I kind of wonder how long this thing's going to need to rest and where it might need to reset to. It's right here back at these November 21 levels, which were the previous highs. And so I think this is another important chart to watch. I would put this one on the same list as ARC and NVIDIA and SMH. I know that the market has moved without Tesla many times and vice versa. When I talk with Enrique, he doesn't even really include it in the Magnificent Seven. He has the Sexy Six and then Tesla because they kind of move differently. But at the same time, with it being back here at those previous highs from that COVID bubble peak, and we're still in that neighborhood right now, if it can't really hold these levels and extend higher, then maybe this one needs more extensive corrective action. Maybe we're gonna have to see. But this is another one of those stocks that like I'm watching because people really care about, like, those delivery numbers weren't great from December. I know that's why it was down on the first trading day of 2025. It was down 6% because December deliveries stunk. And it was, I think, the first time deliveries had shrunk or something for Tesla in many years. So people were fixated on that. And then the next day it was up 8%. It's been down since then, but who knows? So I'm very interested to see how this goes and where it ends up, especially in relation to the rest of the market, because then we have like some of the junk like Rivian. That's kind of mean. Rivian's not junk, but Rivian obviously is not Tesla. And they had, and I have some stray lines on this thing because I was talking about it over the summer, but they had that deal with VW that shot it up, and then it came all the way right back down here into $10 area, and then it's caught some serious look, on Friday, this is right after Tesla started going down, Rivian was up 25%, and it's eating into some of that right now and bleeding off. I mean, it's a huge one-day gain. But at the same time, this is starting to catch as Tesla's starting to roll over. And even some of the ones that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, like Lucid, we've talked about this. It's kind of the same deal as Rivian, where this has defied gravity during December and has really, not nearly as good as the quantum plays or some of the alt energy plays or the space stuff or the robotic stuff that's really caught fire. But a lot of these under the radar EVs started moving up, which kind of steered me in the direction of Plug and some of the other stuff that's been going on. Because when these oldies start moving, like Lucid, which was a cool trader back in the day, and as you can see, there's the dinosaur again. You can see what happened. Never really got its mojo back. Maybe this one's a zero too. But at the same time, when this stuff starts moving, the speculative money's out there and working. And I think Cimarelli told me that Nikola was moving, which is the scam one where they push the semi down the hill. Look, even that was rallying. And this one is junk. I mean, you can go back. Oh, man. Look at this disaster. So this was what? April of 2020 when this thing really got going. I don't know how many times it split. Just this once right here. A 1-for-30 split. Yeah, what a disaster. But even this was rallying. Not that you'd want to be involved in something like this, but this rallied 25%. On January 3rd. So we got that going for us too. Very interesting stuff happening in the markets, but you can see where this stuff starts bubbling up. But yeah, I just think interesting quirks like this, worth looking at. Wouldn't buy this thing, but it's kind of funny when you see these things happen, on the heels of just Tesla reporting poor deliveries.
Yeah. Where else you want to go? I mean, I can go 2025 outlook. I've only got one big thing, and it needs some help. But I think, do we want to do that? You got any other tickers?
Well, I think I've gone over most everything except flying cars. Have you?
Right.
Have you been
That's
involved
basically
in
where my
flying
idea
cars?
is.
That was you. You're flying cars.
No,
You're Joby. Look at
no,
this.
I don't like Joby. No, my
You don't
thing was
like
just
Joby?
No. Oh, it's the worst. What was that, like
Well, you
2021?
want,
When did that thing come out? 2021? It's like,
I
oh,
don't know.
can't take it.
The dinosaur's right here in 2020.
Ugh.
Um,
Yeah.
you tell me you want to drive some old-fashioned car with wheels on the ground when you could be flying around in some airplane car? Come on.
I would
Uh,
rather just have the tires on the ground and then have it drive itself. That's way easier. I don't need it to go up in the air and do things. That's
yeah.
thanks.
I don't even like small planes. I don't like being in like like one of those planes you get, like one of those little connector planes that you get with the that are like turboprops or whatever. I hate those things. So I would not want to be in a Joby for sure.
Brian
But
just wrote in the chat. Brian just wrote in the chat. Matt owns three things: a computer, PLTR, and ASTS. That's
yeah, that's
almost very close. I have more stocks than that, but this is almost it. I live out of the parking lot. I just have a laptop and a few stocks.
it. Somebody said earlier there needs to be a Matt Inslee ETF, and I think there should be.
No.
Um,
Um, but no, the one thing I think this is a theme, and again, I'll say this and shut up, and it needs more research and it needs people to fill it out. Elon is going to be the story. It's going to be 6 months at minimum. Anything he says and does, he's not even in the White House right now. I think Trump genuinely likes him. I think we've already got that read, so that's sort of de-risked. Whereas the RFK Juniors of the world and the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, like, where are they? They're somewhere, but they're not at Mar-a-Lago hanging out dancing with Trump. Elon is going to be in the middle of all sorts of things and he's going to move needles. And whether the market goes up, down, or sideways, there's going to be an Elon narrative. And you're going to want to get a hold of it. So if you find something that starts getting traction in the Elon space, and I'm not saying Tesla, I'm saying what is he doing? What
right.
is SpaceX doing? What
Yeah.
is Starlink doing? What is his solar this? Does he have any aspirations that come out of the government? Because now he's plugged in. When you're the world's richest man, good luck. When you're the world's richest man and you're in the Oval Office, watch out.
Yeah. And this is ACHR. This is the other flying vehicle stock. But I mean, look how good these look, though. I mean, they're not roll. I mean, I would say they're probably losing some steam here. And yes, we have the momentum divergence again. But I think Joby looks pretty good. Like I'm not buying it, but like it's kind of funny to me that like we kick off 2025 with this thing being up 20%. After rallying down here from $5 to 10. It's endlessly fascinating to me. Like these little groups of the market that just capture folks' attention, and when the conditions are just right, that's just how it goes. You
All right,
know.
honest answer. Are you excited by flying cars?
No, I don't want a flying car. I'm a curmudgeon. I barely want an electric car.
Like,
I
I
want
don't
to.
even want them delivering. If drones start delivering stuff, oh my God, what an annoying world.
Yeah, I don't want that. I
No,
hope
I
hopefully
like
I
driverless
won't have to.
cars. Great. Cool. I embrace it.
Yeah.
Freaking Amazon being allowed to fly drones all around. So my neighbor, never mind, it's probably me, gets these dumb packages. Like, come on.
Oh yeah, come on. You be the most guilty of them
I
all.
know they'd be
So
like,
many
what? There's
Amazon
another
flying
package with
Amazon
like
boxes.
one little worthless box that you should have combined with some other order. I don't like it. All right, what else? If you do you have any stocks personally, and would be going away from the trading desk, anything that you kind of like in a longer buy and hold way for 2025?
Uh, buy and hold. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. I think that any of the stuff that I would want to really buy and hold, and of course I have some stuff that I've been holding for a while. I have a longer term portfolio, which I occasionally talk about some of those plays that I own. Um, but I think I'll be able to get some stuff at lower prices. It's the way I'm thinking about 2025. So again, it's my two bucket approach to like how the year is starting. On one hand, you got the plugs of the world where I'm willing to like grab what I can in a smash and grab um, type of trade on those swing trade, tight stops, aggressive profit taking, get the hell out. And then other stuff, I'm like, well, maybe I'll be able to get this cheaper in March or April. I don't want to speak for him, but Enrique has the big prediction about Nvidia losing a bunch of value, and again, he's not bearish on it.
Yeah.
If you take those things into account and the things that we've said today, looking at something like, I wouldn't mind owning some PLTR. I don't own PLTR. I'm not in it like a lot of people are in it. So
Yeah.
I would gladly buy PLTR between $40 and $50.
Yeah, I was
Just
gonna say like low
inside.
50s
Yeah.
and it'd probably be very like 52.
So that's
But
how I'm thinking about things. I think in the spring, in the late winter, early spring, I might be able to get it down there, or maybe it'll take till the summer. I don't know. I don't have my crystal ball with me today, but that's where my thinking is. That the reason I pulled up AI here is because a lot of people were asking about AI. I guess the ticker, or and then AI
Everyone was
stock.
chanting. Well, that someone was saying AI stocks just in general. So
Yeah, and I don't think it looks too bad, honestly. Like, I mean, yeah, it hasn't gone anywhere since November, but at the same time, it hasn't totally fallen apart. So I don't think this is terrible. That's another one. I don't know why we got so slow there. Sound looks like it's rolling over a little bit here. I'm a
yeah,
little wary of this one. You can see volumes kind of dried up on it too, you know. So I would be wary of this thing retreating more down toward $10. Um, but AI doesn't look too terribly bad. But again, it could just go sideways. I don't really see like, you know, I guess this is kind of like this might be, this is kind of a messy consolidation. I don't know if I necessarily like it. I'm not in a hurry to grab something like this, but
Gunner, any last words? We talked a few little tickers there at the end, just sort of stuff to look at for the beginning of the year. But you were saying you like the idea of having some dry powder,
yeah,
and then you know we looked at a C3 AI, nothing crazy there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I would say like, I hate using like Wall Street language about stuff. Like they would say, "Oh, I'm cautiously optimistic about Q1 or whatever." Yeah, that could be true, but let's be a little bit more strategic about things and say that there's probably going to be some speculative trades. It might be we might be on like kind of fumes as far as these speculative trades are concerned. I don't know yet. We'll see how the market rotates and what we rotate into. We don't know that yet either. But while we're doing that, I think we need to keep an eye on again, like just like how are things going to look in the spring? How is this market going to correct if it does? Is it going to be quick? Is it going to be painful? Is it going to be slow and painful? Is it just going to be sideways chop that frustrates us? Either way, it's going to change how we trade. We have to adapt to whatever the conditions are going to be. So if we do get into a situation toward the end of January and we hit some seasonal weakness, we get a little bit of a Trump hangover, you know, what if devil's advocate Elon and Trump start fighting? You know, it's possible. Two big egos bumping into each other, um, and that starts affecting the markets. What if these things happen? So, you know, I think we need to, sort of dust ourselves off from, getting knocked around over the holidays. A lot of our trades took big hits, um, and see what we can do from here. We're trying to salvage things with plug. That's good. Um, and then start thinking about maybe some different type of strategies. We're not going to be able to be as rip snorting bullish and just grabbing on anything that goes up because I feel like we're going to be in the environment where those type of moves don't stick, where you go up and they don't last very long and they go back down. And if we're in that type of environment, we're going to need to like search out different types of trades and sort of extend our time frame a little bit, and maybe look for some hedges too. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I don't want to overreact to anything that's happening in the markets. I think we had a bit of a knee jerk with this whole JOLTS thing. Market doesn't look that great right now, but I want to see how the rest of the week goes. We have Thursday off for the day of mourning for President Carter. So we have another break in this week. So we don't really get our first full trading week of the year until next week. It's a long month. So we'll see how it goes.
all right, everyone. Well, looks like our internet's back up and running, so that part's good. But you've got a pretty decent, at least for a few weeks, and a little bit of mindset for 2025. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, we love the chat. I'm glad we now have it all in one spot where we can continue the conversation right in the same place. Gunnar, thanks for all the insight. We appreciate it. A lot of tickers, a lot of different places to keep an eye on. We'll see you guys next time on Top Trades.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.